Hi, welcome back to Big Girls Yarning. Today we're going to talk tools. So this is my tool chest. It is literally a chest. And we're going to unbox my chest, which is always fun, right? So in here I have all of my knitting, crochet, and Tunisian crochet tools. We'll go through what I have and we'll do some comparisons on the different types of tools. If you want to skip ahead, I will post timestamps in there for the knitting, the crochet, and the Tunisian. But I would advise you to stick around for the first little bit of this video because we're going to be talking about comprehensive tools for all three trades. Let's move those out of the way. So in here, lovely little basket, I have my general tools. So I have a couple really good pairs of scissors. This is an absolute must. Really good scissors. Do not use these scissors for anything other than yarn or thread because you need them to stay sharp. Use them on paper, use them on plastic, and you're going to dull the edges and they're just not going to be as good. You can usually get some really good pairs at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, or you can get them on Amazon as part of a kit. You can also find really nice ones at home improvement stores, so Canadian Tire, Home Depot, Rona, Lowe's, those kind of places. Home Hardware is another great place. As long as you're comfortable using them and they stay sharp, you're good. Next, I have measuring tapes. So when you're designing your own patterns or you're following a pattern that has a gauge recommendation, measuring tape is a very good idea because you need to measure your gauge, so 10 by 10 square generally speaking, see how many stitches you get in that. Or if you want to make a top or a sweater or pants or a skirt or whatever, you need to measure your sizing for that. So I have a few in here. I also have a magnifying glass. I'm blind sometimes and I use it to usually follow charts, sometimes patterns, depending on how small the print is. I have a pen for marking patterns as I go. I also have my findings box. So in here, other than this one, this is a stitch counter, as you can see. Great little tool. It counts stitches and rows and whatnot. You just turn the dial. These simple little things are a great investment. Keep track of your rows, your stitches, whatever. Here I have my yarn needles and some stitch markers. So I have different sizes of yarn needles depending on the type of yarn I'm using. The larger ones I use for larger yarns, obviously, and then the smaller ones for your smaller yarns. These just happen to be the ones that I prefer. I like the metal ones because it can be a little forceful sometimes and bend the plastic ones. But plastic is definitely a great way to go. You can also get ones that are diamond shaped. So there's no point and there's no eye, so it's really easy to thread it no matter the size of the yarn, and then both ends are pointed so you can go in and out without any issues. Stitch markers. So I have two types of stitch markers. I have this one here, which just opens like that, and then I have this one here, which is more like a hook, and again they do close. These are great for marking sides of increases. So if you're only increasing on one side of a project, you mark it and then just carry the stitch marker up. It's also a great place when you're increasing or decreasing within a single row. So you want to mark the stitches as you go so that you know where to increase and where to decrease without counting. They're also great for marking the beginning stitch of a round. So when you're knitting or crocheting in a round, you can mark that stitch so that you can just continue carrying on without running a seam. That's a topic for another video entirely. So that's my findings box. I also have boxes of buttons in various sizes. Now these particular boxes I picked up at the dollar store. They're great little snap and locks. You can get them in the where they keep all the Tupperware and stuff like that. I divide my buttons by sizes just because then it's easy to grab and go. And in here I have my actual sewing stuff. Here's a plastic needle that I was talking about. So it's just a little plastic needle. Right? And then I also have my regular sewing needles in here as well. So that's my findings box. And I also have a junk box. So this has all of my zippers, it has pencils in it, it has elastics for whatever projects I'm doing. Just anything that I could possibly maybe use. I have keychain pieces, got little post-it notes to keep track of where I'm going, what I'm doing, make notes on what I want to do, and then a little thing with some safety pins. And everybody has a junk drawer. This is my junk box and my toolbox. I also have a set of purse handles, something that's great to hang on to if you like making bags and whatnot. I only have these ones at the moment. I have to make a trip out to this wonderful little craft shop in I want to say Merrickville, but that's not the right one, in Perth, just on the main street. It's a fabulous, fabulous little shop. You get lots of yarn and fabric. It's a comprehensive one. So you get yarn and fabric and appliques and buttons and thread like you wouldn't believe. It's absolutely fantastic. So because they're on top, we're going to talk knitting needles. So I have little zipper cases that I keep my cabled needles in. And then obviously these ones are too big to fit in a case. So I have 3 different types of needles that I use. It all depends on what the project is that I'm doing and how large of a project. So these are standard metal single point needles. You can get double point needles, so that means that there's a point on one end and one on the other end. Generally speaking, that's for knitting in the round, so for socks, hats, round bags, that kind of stuff. It just makes it, you don't stretch it and whatnot, makes it easier to form your project. And on the bottom of these ones has the US sizing as well as the millimeters. So this particular one is a US size 6, which puts it at a 4.25 millimeter. Okay, and when we talk yarn, I'll go over how to decide on a gauge of needle or hook based on the size of the yarn. Here's another set of single-ended, right? This one is a US size 8, so it's a 5 millimeter, and these ones here are another US size 8. Again, all metal. These are all 18 inches. So it's good for small projects like scarves, or if you're doing blanket squares, that kind of thing. These are great. Metal does tend to be heavier, so those that have difficulties with arthritis or carpal tunnel, I would definitely suggest not getting metal needles. Yes, they are more durable and they do stand up to more abuse, but they are heavy. So you won't be able to knit for as long using metal needles as you would with different materials, like these ones. So these are 24-inch long plastic needles. Right? Super simple. These are actually what I learned on, not these particular ones, but plastic is what I learned on. The glide on it is fantastic. They are lightweight, so you can knit longer when you have problems in the tendons of the hand. They're marked as to their size. These particular ones are marked with the millimeters as opposed to the US sizing. So, absolutely fantastic set of needles. I also have cabled needles. So these are great when you're doing a larger project, or like me, you always lose one of the needles. And I keep them in a little pencil case zipper here. So these are made out of wood. These are my favorite. I absolutely love using wood needles. The slide is fantastic on them. They're super lightweight. And again, because it's cabled, I cannot lose one. which is great. So these particular ones have the stamping on them for both the US size as well as the millimeter size. I prefer to go by millimeter size just because I'm Canadian, but those of you that go by the US sizing, that's fantastic too. So these you can get on Amazon. I'll see if I can find the link for them and post them in the description. So these particular ones are 32. So that's when you're looking at purchasing cabled needles, the size in length is always just the cable. So from the end of one needle to the other end. So just the cable itself, and that's a 32 inch. I also have another little pencil case that has my smaller cables. Again, wood. These ones are 12 inch. So I like using these for socks, small hats, that kind of stuff. So you don't have all of this extra cable when you're working on a smaller project. So that's a great investment if you do a lot of socks or hats or stuff like that. And keeping them all in the little zipper pouches makes it so much easier to find, especially considering I color coded mine because I have a terrible memory. So that is knitting needles. If you have any questions or you want me to expand on something, please feel free to leave comments in the comments section, and I will do my absolute best to answer them. If not, I will find the answers for you. So moving on to Tunisian. So I have 3 types of Tunisian. So this one here is a double-ended hook. Okay, so as I explained in my introduction to Tunisian crochet, these are great when you're doing a bicolored project. So you have 2 colors, one going in one direction, one going in the other direction, or when you're crocheting in the round, because you carry your loops in one direction and your return pass in the other direction. We'll go into more detail of that when we actually get to a crochet in the round project. This one here is a standard Afghan needle or hook. Okay, it's hook on one end and it's got a blunter on the other one. This particular one is an H hook or a 5mm. So again, US sizing is the letter, the millimeter size is the actual diameter of the hook itself. So the body of the hook, not up here. Okay, so these are great when you're doing scarves, small squares, if you're doing a shawl or whatnot. These are great because there's lots of room to put lots of stitches on it. However, if you're looking at doing a larger project, I would definitely suggest that you invest in cabled hooks. Okay, and again, the metal is going to be heavier than the wood is, and because this is all metal, whereas this one is a hood and plastic combination, this will get heavy the more you have attached to it. So the longer your project, the heavier this will get. Okay, I also find it rather cumbersome when I'm using it because it's long and I have small hands. So I use these mostly, more so than I do this one. So again, this is wood. Okay, the sizing is printed on it only in the millimeters. You probably can't see that. They tend to wear, the sizing tends to wear away over time. And again, it's cabled, nice long cable, right? So you can cram hundreds of stitches on this one here. I have not found Tunisian hooks that have sized cables. So as far as I know, I might be wrong. If you guys know better, let me know. You can't get a smaller cable on the hooks. It only comes in one size. However, you can get interchangeables. So it's several different hooks with pointed ends like this that you slide 1 or 2 cables over. So your kit will have a bunch of hooks, different sizes, but it'll have 1 or 2 cables that you would attach. Same thing goes for knitting. You can buy it that way as well, right? Those are nice fancy kits, right? But I'm lazy, so I have just a set. And again, I will put the link on Amazon as to where I found these in the description. So again, back in my little pencil case. Keeps it all nice and neat and together so I don't lose anything, even though I still lose them. So on to crochet. These are my hook boxes. I picked these up at Michael's. Oh yes, these I picked up at the dollar store. Right? They're great little canvas zipper pouches. They take up a lot of abuse because my stuff gets a lot of abuse. So these, I have my most used hooks in one, and then I have my less used hooks, which of course is a lot more, in another one. So I use a combination of hooks depending on what I'm doing. So I have wood hooks, I have wood and metal combination hooks, I have all metal hooks, and I have, there it is, there you are. This as well. This is my least favorite hook type. So it is metal, but it's a lightweight aluminum. Right? I just don't like the type of hook that's on it, the shape of it. I find that the little beak here gets caught in my yarn when I'm doing my pull throughs, and I end up with a lot of splitting. But that's just my take on it. I just don't particularly care for them. I have a larger wood one here. So these wooden hooks are fabulous when you're doing small Tunisian crochet. So doing entrelac, or you're just making a small project or pieces for a small project. These are great because they're all one diameter, right? There's no change in the diameter of the hook, so it slides nice and easily off. Sometimes, depending on the number of stitches that I'm putting on it, I'll put a stopper on the end, so just wrap a piece of elastic around it, just a regular rubber band, so that my stitches don't slide off the end of it. Right, again, the millimeters are printed, I don't know if you can see that very well, on it, as opposed to both the US sizing and the millimeter sizing. This one here is a metal and wood composite. So a metal hook is inserted into the wood handle. It's supposed to be more comfortable when you're using it for threads. This happens to be a 1 millimeter, which is super tiny, super tiny. And that's used for threads. I don't usually work with threads. I find them a little too fiddly for me, a little too small. Doesn't mean I haven't done it. I have made table runners and doilies. I just find them a little too fiddly for my liking. And this one here is a metal hook. This is the largest one I have. So it's a 10 millimeter or a N15. They do come bigger, right? I would suggest, if you're going to work with larger hooks than this one, that you move into a plastic, right? And you can get plastic. You can get some really cute little clear plastic ones. But definitely move into a wood or a plastic one, because the bigger they get than this, the heavier they get, because they are a solid aluminum. On that note, you can get plastic hooks. I don't have any. I find them too light, and I find my stitches simply slip off of them. You can also get hooks with handles, so ergonomic handles, or soft cushioned handles. You can also get lighted hooks. So for those of you that like to travel while you're crocheting, or if you like to travel and you like to hook in the movie theater or while watching TV with the lights off, they're fantastic. They're also great when you have optical issues, so you don't see very well, or you're working with black or dark colored yarns, because they illuminate at the hook itself, or just behind the hook, and it just lights up your stitches. I don't own a set, but they are out there, and the reviews are absolutely fantastic for them. But do your comparisons, read the reviews before you purchase, so that you get the right hooks for what you need, for what you're looking for. Or instead of buying ergonomic handles or buying hooks with handles, you can always do this. So this is Fimo It's a baking clay kind of thing. Polymer clay is another way that it goes by. I simply softened it and then twirled it around my hook and then baked it in the oven. And so my smaller hooks now have handles, because I find that when they're small they tend to dig in right here over time and I get sore fingers. So, and again, the metal hooks are sized on the little thumb spot there. This one is a D3 or a 3.25 millimeter. So there you go. That is hooks and needles and scissors and all that wonderful, wonderful stuff to get you started on your road to yarn crafts. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, or follow me on Facebook, Ravelry, and my Pinterest. I'll post all the links in the comment section, in the description section. Thanks. Bye.